All right, what's going on, guys? So I've been waiting a little bit to see what these Twitter files have been showing as it's being released. If you haven't heard, Twitter and Elon Musk, they've been very transparent about certain communications, and they're using journalists like Matt Taibbi and Barry Weiss and many others well known in the mainstream sort of media and publishing some of the internal communications that have been surrounding a lot of the controversial topics. So recently, part 3 was about Trump being banned on Twitter following just the 2020 elections. Part 1 was about Hunter Biden, and then part 2 about just general censorship. Now, there's many ways that I can tackle this. I can just share with you guys the fact that a lot of you guys watching, I know many are just walking in your faith, and I'm deliberately sharing certain pieces of news as an overarching theme to help you to snap awake to what I call this perception of reality. For those of you that have been following, news and internal things the way I have, I want to say very informed, not at the bleeding edge of being informed, in terms of all of this being a bigger movement of waking people up. Whether you want to call attention to certain movements or certain secret things like MK Ultra, Operation Mockingbird, and all these other things. So there's a bleeding edge to knowing what's really going on, which is, if you want to say it's a movie, if you want to say that there's a lot of deliberateness behind planning this whole operation, you bring Q into it, you bring many things into this. I can talk about it at that point. But because many of you that are watching, you are just trying to decipher the everyday, but also be firm in your faith and desiring to do righteous things, I can only sort of meet in the middle. Many people are at the bleeding edge, and I can't constantly be catering to these people because and you're in alignment, you're in agreement, but it's hard because the other people that are not on the same page, they're going to just backlash, they're going to be confused, they need to be handheld a little bit. And so the Lord, as well as many other people, they've have called us, many of us, to kind of meet the people that are in the middle. And so this is where, when I message things, I have to sort of talk about it from that perspective, because all the stuff, it's obvious. Yeah, we know what we already know, like this transparent stuff, it's already obvious. But for those that are just learning about it, they're shocked, like, oh, really? Like, that's what happened at Twitter? These are the kinds of people that, because people have called them weird conspiracy theorists or whatever it is, they're now just being brought into the fold, and they're being able to wake up. And this is, again, triggering their ability to not be led by these, the mainstream media, these people that say they have a title or a certain accolade, and they're just forced to believe them, rather than waking up and saying, I want to have discernment of my own, but more importantly, of what the Lord shows me. And so this is part of this awakening process. This is part of elevating and ascending to this next level of maturity so that you are not caught up in the deception and the lies of the enemy. And so this is part of why I talk about certain topics, certain things. It's not about, oh, it's Elon Musk and Twitter, it's so cool. Oh, like this, topic is so interesting. It's not about that. It's a bigger movement, and it's to help people cope with these things. And so right off the bat, I want to say that as a disclaimer. But if you haven't read these Twitter files, I would highly recommend doing so, because it's going to get you, it's palpable enough, it's safe enough for you to be able to see it not as a fringe sort of conspiracy thing that a lot of us have believed and knew of these things, but it's also evidence-based. It's also, if you look at, and again, you could even question, is all of this true? But again, for the normal person in society, you're going to look at this and say, wow, he really is exposing certain things one at a time. And people have to be moved at a certain speed. You can't just dump it all at once at them. And so this is why this process over the last couple of years have grown to the direction of, wow, there is censorship. There is a concerted effort and a movement. There is a desire to silence the conservative, the Trump era, and they're trying to move away from this to get you to think in a certain way that the elitists and these people, and again, I can throw terms out there, deep state and Illuminati, whatever you want to call it, these people want to move in a certain direction, and these other people that are fighting for humanity, for freedom, they are getting in the way. And so this is what this battle is bringing attention to. And so these are small parts of the greater movement of exposure, as I've mentioned before, how God is bringing to light certain things, and then for the justice, for the precipice to be met. People in, as I mentioned in the other video, in South America, these guys are rising up because enough is enough with the corruption A lot of people in America, they're sleeping, they're not aware. And until they keep getting these either, whether it's the Twitter files or other things being exposed, the Hunter Biden was a big one. Many things have to hit them just square in their face for them to be able to realize these things. And so this is part of this bigger movement. Now, again, go look at these Twitter files. There's already 3 parts up. It's very interesting. There's more, of course, than that. But I think it's drip, 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 and then flood. And all of this, again, is to bring more people on board. It's the movement towards exposure and truth. It's not going away. More and more people are now believing the fraud, the theft. They're believing in just this hidden, invisible hand. Many issues that have that many people on the bleeding edge, like I said earlier, have already known about, have already been declaring. But for those that have been sleeping, they're sheep. These guys are the ones that we need to target and to wake up. And so again, guys, this is bigger. This is a bigger movement than just understanding little files and Twitter things and all that. It's a bigger movement that God is exposing and allowing us to trigger our desire for righteousness, for justice, and many other things. So that's why I talk about it. That's why I'm hinting at it. I'm not going to go into the details of it. And whether you think this is part of a greater effort of a concerted sort of operational military operation, a movie, if you will, that you're watching playing out or not, or if it's just this natural movement of transparency and exposure, whatever it is, the objective is still the same and it's getting done well. It is to expose, it is to wake people up, it is to get people on the same page, because a lot of people are basing their information, their facts, quote unquote, on the wrong things. And that's why you have people arguing. They're anchoring themselves off things that people told you, like the Hunter Biden thing, like that's misinformation, that's Russian propaganda. You're just echoing what somebody else is telling you. But when you see what really has happened and what really was the truth, then you will wake up to the fact. And a lot of people, sadly, even if they are corrected in these, in this instance for the 3 Twitter files and the 3 parts, or any other story, even if they're corrected, even if they're given new information, they're going to refuse to believe it. And that's the saddest part. Again, if you're ignorant, if you didn't know, if you were lied to, that's one thing. But if you refuse to pray and ask the Lord for truth, then you're going to be in a place for which it's going to be hopeless for you. Some people will be lost forever. Like I've said before, some people are just going to take any drug, anything left and right. They're just going to continue wearing masks and do all these things that really they just won't be able to snap out of. And for them, they are lost. But many people, a lot of the majority, you are waking up slowly, one by one. So love you guys. We want to give you guys this encouraging word. Talk to you guys very soon.